Hi, everybody. Welcome back to a theme Thursday. All of our Jaguars out there, welcome back again. This is something we do every Thursday. If you guys didn't already know, we are Clifton Strengths campus, and we get to talk about our Clifton Strengths throughout many different points in the semester, and even with all of our students who have access to Clifton Strengths, our students, our alumni, our faculty, and staff. My name is Allie. I am the Service Learning Coordinator at the May Center, and I'm super excited to have with me today a couple really special guests. I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves. Clarissa, if you want to get started.
Hi, Jaguars. This is Clarissa Tejeda, and I'm the Assistant Director of Career Services and then also one of the campus certified coaches.
Thank you. And next up, we have Kaylin.
I'll jump in. Yeah, my name is Kaylin Fries. I am the internship coordinator in the May Center on campus, and I am also one of the certified coaches. So I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you for being here, Kaylin. And of course, we have our very special guest who actually has consistency in their top 5 strengths, and that's Shala.
Everybody, my name is Shala Malati, and I'm the Assistant Director with the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities. And I'm so glad to be here today.
And we are so thrilled to have, of course, we always have our coaches on here, but it's particularly special for us to have somebody who has this strength in their top 5. And when we're thinking about consistency, it's really a very interesting strength and something that we want to talk on more. Consistency, or people who are exceptionally talented in the consistency theme, are keenly aware of the need to treat people the same. They crave stable routines and clear rules and procedures that everyone can follow. So that's kind of where we're starting off this conversation, is that understanding of, people who have the consistency strength tend to think in terms of fairness and equitable equality. So we're really excited to have Shala here to kind of talk to us about how she uses her strength as well. And we're just gonna jump right in, just like we do every Thursday, because we have so much that we want to talk about. And we're gonna start with the most basic of questions, but like, what does consistency mean to you? And I'm gonna start asking Shala, but of course we're gonna have some more feedback from our coaches as well. But Shala, I mean, as somebody who has consistency, what does it really mean for you?
With consistency, honestly, I probably noticed this strength the most in my day-to-day compared to some of my other strengths. So with consistency, it really is, I see it in 2 different ways. It's in my day-to-day and then also how I treat people as well. So in my day-to-day, it's very routine-based. With that, I'm very purposeful about my routine and my actions and how I go about my day. But I also see it in the way that I treat people. So as Ali had mentioned, it really is noticing patterns. So it's that awareness of patterns where I see fairness versus unfairness, or balance versus imbalance within the world and among people and how they're treated. For me, consistency, those with the consistency strength, I feel, have traits similar to an egalitarian, where you really want equality and equity among everybody. So with that, once again, it goes back to that awareness of patterns and creating a baseline for everybody when it comes to social understanding. So the reason why I just said that is because I'm thinking about my particular position with the university, with the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities. So with that, those are the rules and procedures for the students on campus. And that for me is what creates that baseline for all students, that social understanding for fairness, that this is how everybody should behave so that everybody has the same starting point. And then for whatever a violation of one of those rules, that's where a discussion needs to be had so that we can review, okay, why is there an imbalance here? What exactly is going on? So overall, I really see consistency in my actions. I feel like my actions are driven in fairness. It's not just about me, it's about everybody and how everybody can get to that same starting point and make sure that there is an understanding of why there's rules and processes for that fairness.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think, you know, in particular, just looking at the consistency strength and you talked a lot about awareness, and that's how we really talk about our strengths all the time, is that self-awareness, but awareness externally into the group mindset of, you know, what is fair for everyone involved. And so I really love how you very eloquently put that into words of that mindset that you have to have in your day to day, but also just in general, like that strength is who you are and you get to use it in your work really well. To our coaches, is there anything that you guys want to add to that, Clarissa or Kaylin, on, you know, what it means for you as a coach or what it might mean for others who have consistency?
I can jump in and basically just kind of reiterate what Shala's been saying in that something that I've noticed with consistency and especially with you, Shala, in your role is that you bring this cultural predictability. So students know what the policies are, they know what the expectation is, and then you execute that using your consistency in a way that is very predictable for our campus and for our students. So there's no how do I put this? There's no discrimination. There's nobody is going to be treated differently, no one's going to be treated unfairly. You kind of execute on those policies and those procedures in a way that's predictable and fair for everybody across the board. And so I've just seen that in your position as you've used your strength.
Oh, I love that, Caleb. I love that. Absolutely. With my position with the university, it's absolutely about being deliberate and intentional and educating the students as to why. It's the purpose behind it. It's that understanding. And with that, it really is educating on these are why this is in place. We have this purpose. We have this procedure and these regulations for a reason. And with that, it goes back to creating that social understanding and that awareness for our students.
I think with consistency, when I first started learning about it, I really thought, well, is this something that's going to fall into the relationship building, right? Because you're treating everyone the same, but it actually lives in the executing domain, which I thought was really fascinating. Because someone who is really high with consistency, again, seeing Shala and her role, they are really effective at getting the needle moving. Because they've seen things that have already worked. It's like, hey, you know what? Let's keep on moving forward at that. Let's take away the drama. Let's keep on focusing on progress. And that's why it lives in executing, because it can get the job done and it can see where everybody should be kind of treated the same to move forward.
I think it's really interesting and you know, sometimes we kind of do these questions in a circle, but I almost want to circle back. You talked about routine based, and routine is part of your strength, and keeping with that, you know, everyone is equal in that. And I think we talked a little bit about how it works in your work life, but I want to jump onto that routine kind of comment because we are experiencing a big change in routine right now. And so I was just wondering, you know, what are some of the challenges that you're facing right now as somebody who has consistency as we kind of move into this new world of remote work and inconsistency in day-to-day life externally from ourselves?
I love that this question asking what are the challenges of this strength is challenging for me. The reason for that is because I'm deeply set in my. I'm very purposeful and deliberate. And with that, I did a little research on consistency. Yes, I do it today. I have an awareness of myself when it comes to it, but I wanted to research a little further so that I can verbalize a little bit of what exactly consistency means and what others can see when it comes with that. What comes with that? That might be the learner in me. But with that, I I saw a video in regards to this strength, and it said that with this, change for the sake of change can scatter somebody with consistency. I find that so true. Now, with this change, it's not change just for the sake of it. With that, I hope everybody's safe and healthy right now. But the latter is true, that somebody who's so deeply set in their routine, where they found what works well for them with a purpose, where they have to all of a sudden change overnight what they do, it really was scattering for me. And with that, it's not because I'm not a flexible person, it's because I had to change what I was doing so quickly that I wasn't able to do it with as much deliberation as I wanted to. So absolutely, this change was a little scattering for me, as I know it might have been scattering for other people as well. But I know that everybody's kind of moving forward and sadly getting used to this norm for right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a really great way to say, I think most or a lot of the strengths, not all of them, but a lot of the strengths are a lot of people that we know and our students, especially the Jaguars who are watching this, like change for the sake of change is very difficult sometimes. And change without reason is very difficult. But when we have a situation like this where change is necessary, it can be a little bit easier to swallow is like, oh, I need to make this change. So, yes, this is a huge disruption in my life and in the world in general right now, but it's not for nothing. And keeping that mentality can be really helpful for our students or anybody who's watching this who might be having, struggling with that or even struggling with their strengths in that way of, it's just not working for them. Like this can be a really good opportunity to take a step back and say, this isn't change for change's sake. This is change for a reason. And that your consistency can still power through and push through that to be still really beneficial for you, and keep balance. When there is so much imbalance and so much going on, I think what's interesting about this strength is that a lot of people will say those people who have consistency are trustworthy or they're reliable and dependent. And I think that's interesting in a time like this, is that people are going to seek out that reliability, that dependability, that trustworthy, to say the systems are not changing. Like these rules and regulations might shift a little depending on what the situation is, but that these are set in stone and that there's somebody who's going to be able to hold that accountability. So during this really difficult time for so many of our students and so many of our faculty and staff, it's really crucial that we look to our people who have consistency to keep us in that balance. Clarissa and Kaylin, is there anything you guys are thinking could be other barriers to consistency or to those who have the consistency strength very high up?
I'll add just from my card. You guys know that I always have my little cards here. The barrier label, or one of the barrier labels that is part of the consistency strength, is that rules trump relationships and results. And I do know that rules and policies and procedures are very important to people with consistency, but I haven't seen that relationships don't matter as a result of that. And so I think that's probably, Shala, you can disagree or agree, whatever has been your experience, but I don't think that relationships take a sidestep. Especially in your role, Shala, relationships probably very much so matter because of the students that are walking into your office, and building that relationship to establish trust is really important to get some of the messaging across. So I think sometimes it can seem that people with consistency are rule followers, and that rules matter more than relationships, but I don't necessarily think that that's true, and that is in fact just a barrier label as opposed to a fact.
On this one, for me, with that, Ali, you are right in that with consistency, you are predictable and reliable. But as Kaylin said, I wouldn't put rules above relationships. In fact, with with consistency, I find that it's about establishing those relationships and that I treat everybody the same. So it's not about giving somebody a leg up compared to somebody else. It's about, hey, if I see one student for an alleged violation, I'm going to treat them the same as I am another student. Or if I see somebody in the hallway, I'm going to say hi, no matter who they are. So with that, I could see it being maybe a barrier for some where you have to figure out that balance of explaining, like, listen, you are an important person. Everybody's important in my eyes, but there are rules and regulations that must be followed. And I utilize another one of my strengths, which is relator, and in building up relationships. So this is where all the strengths come together, right, y'all?
Absolutely.
I'm excited you said that, Shala. I think it's one of those things that sometimes we forget that, yeah, all the strengths have to kind of play together, right? So, like, say consistency, being really focused on treating people similar promotes fairness versus individualization. Maybe think, well, treating people differently promotes fairness. Both of them have the same end goals, making sure everybody feels heard and everybody is having that sense of norm. I have both of those in my like top 10, and sometimes they do kind of fight each other, where I really appreciate those, someone with consistency, allowing me to kind of break down to say, you know what, I have my individualization will slow me down sometimes, but if we just see, you know, how does this work on the larger picture? Do we always have to break it down piece by piece? Can we just do what's effective for everybody? It really lets me move the pieces move forward. Liesel from our team, she has consistency. So anytime I do struggle, I know I go to that strength to really help me out.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I think, so powerful to hear this from you guys. I think consistency is one of those strengths where it's not like a straightforward like this is I don't think actually any of the strengths are straightforward. This is what it means. Unfortunately, they're all have, you know, and like we say, they all have these mature stages to them. So it can be a barrier, you know, when you are maybe joining a new group and you want things to be fair and consistent, but you haven't had the opportunity to like build those relationships yet, so that everybody can see that you have good intentions behind the equality for the group. So, you know, that's something that all strengths across the board have to deal with our challenges and barriers, but also just maturing in your strength and maturing in yourself and your role, whatever that might be. And I think that's really interesting too when we think about all of the strengths, but particularly for consistency and having that ability to be trustworthy and to build relationships through following these rules and regulations and being that kind of stability for a group or a team that people will naturally, you know, say, oh, I know that they can create a stable environment. I know they can bring order to what feels like chaos sometimes because they have the knowledge and ability to do so. So, you know, looking on to our next question, like what are, and I know we've given a couple already, but examples of where consistency has helped you. And I think, Shala, particularly in your role, it makes so much sense when we talk about it this way. But yeah, what are kind of other examples that consistency has really helped you, maybe even as when you were a student or as you kind of continue learning? Because I do know, I think you said you had learner as well.
Yes, learner's actually my number one. With this, like I said, I did a little research to prepare myself when I was asked to do this, and my learner came out, and so did my intellection. So with my learner, I had to find out more. And with my intellection, it was me trying to figure out and look at that pattern and think of how I'm going to say it in a way that makes sense. And then well, in my research, I found saying that those with the strengths of consistency have a love affair with rules. And that might not be for everybody, but I can tell you it is 100% true for me. Whether it's in my day-to-day routine, whether it's with my professional position with the university, or right now I'm going to school. I am a student right now. I am obtaining my master's of jurisprudence, so I'm going to law school right now. So I am surrounded by laws and learning and understanding. And for me, it's trying to figure out the purpose behind that. Why are there rules that there are? Are those rules fair? Are they balanced? Or are they trying to give a leg up to somebody else? So with that, oh my gosh, I see it all the time, day to day, whether it's working with, like I said, a student who allegedly violated a code of conduct rule, or it's me studying for my law classes where it's trying to understand the purpose behind everything. And like I said, maybe it's all my strengths coming together for this one. But in the end, for me, it's about recognizing that the baseline, and it's also recognizing that it's about regulation and compliance overall for safety. So I'm not a person who likes to be in the background. I love creating various types of policies and making certain that they are equitable for everybody. But I do want to go back to a challenge is that I I'm not that I'm flexible, but sometimes I might be that person that says, "Hey, we've used this process in the past. It's worked. Um, is there a reason why we need to change it? If there is a reason, then absolutely I'll go for it. But if it's just change for the sake of change, I might be like, why? So with that, I might be going off here, but I know that with us being remote work from home, everything's virtual, and I know that a lot of offices are utilizing social media a little bit more. I might be that person that's like, okay, this is a trend, but do I really want to put my time into it if it's going to disappear a week from now? So I'm that person that, whether it's in my day to day with the office, with school, or my personal life, I really want to make sure that it's structured in a way where I utilize my time to the best of my ability and that I am consistent with my routine, which does make me a little predictable at times. But I some people do like that predictability from me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've recently, like you just said with the social media, we've recently said, well, what's consistent after this is over? Where do we put our time and our energy? Because we don't want to focus on programs or give all of our time and energy to programs that are centered around the fact that we're in, a difficult space right now. Like what is consistent and what can we do to bring consistency to our students' lives? Um, but I also, congratulations on being a student, by the way. All of our students who see this know that being a student is not always easy, especially when you are working full time or you have other responsibilities. So congratulations on that for just being an awesome student and doing such amazing work with the university and giving so much day to day and then still pursuing other endeavors. So congratulations on that. But it is such an interesting perspective. Like that consistency, I would assume, also helps you to say, create that routine of like, I am going to study or I'm going to, I think a lot of our students can sometimes struggle with that of finding time and finding a routine when there's so much going on. And so maybe you reach out to a friend who has consistency and say, how are you doing it? How what's working for you, or what can I kind of implement and learn from? And that's another part of strengths, is learning from other people's strengths and learning from what helps them or what kind of motivates them. Clarissa and Kaylin, is there anything else you guys, can think of examples where consistency, maybe even if it's not your top 5, but that it really has come into play in different points of your careers?
I think for quality control, consistency is such a rock star. So it's in my 10, but I will say my individualization has a tendency to kind of lead, and I'm like, oops, don't do that. So I go to team members that have consistency. So for example, trying to build a training curriculum. I may see it in the lens, okay, these type of students, so say if I'm looking at just like upperclassmen who may have had work experience, they'll know the certain jargon I may be putting into that training. Well, going to like say Liesel again, where she has that strong sense of consistency, she's like, well, is everybody going to get that same message? So she allows me to do my job better because she can look to see, well, does everybody going to see that? Is everybody going to have that same experience? And I really do appreciate that because it also allows getting that project now to have a wider hold on people. So I'm really excited when she gets to kind of give her 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. The other thing that I would add is just that people who have consistency have really boiled down processes to be the most efficient. And especially for them. Now, this can change from person to person. So, for example, the way Shala studies and what works for her may not work for another person, but they've really boiled down that process so that it's very consistent and routine and very mindless, if you will. They probably don't even think about it as they're doing it because it's just so natural. And so I think if you have consistency to consider the routines that you've put into place, or like Shala said, the day-to-day things that are just so in sync and in tune for you that you don't even think about them.
Yeah, and this is Clarissa, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, Shala, just quick question. And so, right when you were told, hey, you know what, I'm going to be going remote, how did that consistency kick in?
I don't mean to laugh or chuckle at myself, but like I said, it was a little scattering, me trying to figure out technology because I'm not the best when it comes to technology. But for me, I found that consistency really came in where I live by my calendar and I continued to do so. I have a schedule where the first thing I do when I come into the office is this, this, and this. So I make sure that I move forward with that. When it comes to meetings with students, it's no longer in person, but the virtual meetings are still the same. It's still the same process. We still explain everything to them. And we might have to explain a little bit more, but with that, it's making sure me and my coworkers are explaining the same thing to the students so that the process is still consistent across the board and there is still that fairness and that understanding. So for me, it's really trying to keep my schedule the same as it was, even though my workspace is different, even though I might have issues with technology, I still can control my time and how I move forward with implementing the various processes that I have in place.
Nice. So it sounds like even though we're in a really unknown time, just going back to that core strength of yours really did keep that, I guess, sense of calm for you.
For a little bit, it did. I'm like everybody else, where we all need to look into our mental health and make sure everybody's doing all right, staying safe and being healthy. But yeah, I can definitely fall back on the dependability and reliableness of this strength for me.
That's just like a really great point to make, is like still checking in. All of our strengths are not always going to carry us through everything. Sometimes we've got to check in, or like we've been saying, find different strengths that you are maybe lacking during this time, or you're maybe struggling with, something. You can reach out to others and be able to say like, hey, I know you have this strength, or I'm struggling with maybe, those who have communication strength. Maybe their coworkers can reach out and say like, oh, like communication in this way is completely remote and everything is difficult sometimes. So I think that's a really great point to say, like, your strengths can only carry you so far until you can really take a step and say like, well, where else can I, gather other people's strengths and like really build our team, or build a team around me that can be supportive. And that collaboration can sometimes be difficult, like we've talked about with all the other strengths. And what I kind of want to hear more from you right now is like, what are tips for collaborating with somebody who has consistency, and what can those who don't have consistency do better to collaborate with those who do?
Yeah, so with consistency, I think there needs to be an understanding that when I'm working with others, I'm not trying to get a leg up for myself or for one other person. I view a team as a team. So for me, it's making sure that there is that fairness across the board. So it's also that understanding that what's right for one person might not be right for another. So it's understanding what's right for me and everybody else. With consistency, I think working with somebody with that strength is having that understanding that um, we know what works. We're not always stuck in the past. It's just that we are very deliberate where it comes to our time. So if somebody's like, hey, there's this new thing, I might not jump on board right away because I want to see, okay, will that new thing be here just for today or will it be here a year from now? Could we utilize it 5 years from now? So it's understanding that I might not jump on board with all the trends, but I do see that there is a purpose for everything. And if somebody needs to reach out for like, hey, can you give me some advice when it comes to consistency? I always go back to, for me, it's my schedule. I'm a very linear thinker. I'm from point A to point B to point C. And it's just an understanding of, okay, there's a process for everything, there's logic behind everything. And if for some reason you're struggling, look at your time, look at your mental health, and see what you can do for yourself. Because for me, consistency can be comfort. I don't know if that's what could help somebody else, but I do like routine. Like in a time like this, routine is really helping. So it's waking up at the same time every day, going to bed consistently at the same time. It's making healthy meals. It's making sure that I check in on others and make sure that they're doing okay. And I hope that everybody understands that you can't help others unless you help yourself first. So it's looking inward and making sure that you're okay so that you can help others.
Yeah, and that is really such a great point at a time like this. I know our team. I don't know about everybody else, but I know a couple of people on our team and myself especially. Like, I normally would feel really comfortable with my calendar or would feel really comfortable, with my time management, but it's definitely been a lot more difficult for me to get into a routine quickly. I feel like I'm still kind of searching for that routine, even though we're going on week 3. I feel like so much has changed. Um, that it can be really difficult to still find that routine, but it has so much value in it. And there are certain things like just doing every day to keep consistency is good, keep consistent in your work. And like Clarissa said earlier, that quality comes when you can be consistent with it. So I really appreciate you talking about that and taking care of yourself because that's what a lot of people are dealing with right now and not just now. This is kind of all the time. We have a tendency, a lot of people have a tendency to say like, oh, I'm worried about all these external things, but I haven't taken a minute to take care of myself and recognize like where I need to be building up my strengths or where I need to be building up my work or what my focus is on. And that's not just during this time, but that's, all the time we have to refocus ourselves to be more consistent. And that way, again, like we said, we can be equitable, we can be trustworthy, we can be stable for others around us when we have that consistency. Clarissa and Kaylin, are there any tips that Gallup has said or that you guys have experienced in your coaching sessions that you share with others who are working to collaborate with somebody who has consistency?
I'll jump in. So this is Kaylin. I'll just mention that when you're working in a team or in a group, if you have somebody on your team who has consistency, to really help them, or not help them, but to use them in a way that is their strength. So ask them to help you find a process that has been tried and true and works for you to accomplish your task, or ask them to, like, is there a policy or a procedure or a rule that exists that we can use to help us move forward. Have them kind of be the person who keeps everybody in check, because they're not going to play favorites, if that makes sense. So like when it comes to everyone getting enough talking time, or everybody contributing to a part of the process, they're going to really be a key player in that fairness aspect of it. And then also, like I said, the routine, and like, is there something that we can go on that has already been tried and true and that works? They're going to be able to pull that out quicker than people who don't necessarily have consistency in their top 5.
And also, people high on consistency, they're really good at kind of identifying the outliers are. So say if, again, the team is operating on a certain norm, this is what operations look like, but maybe you have that one team member that just kind of went above and beyond. That person high in consistency is really going to want to recognize that effort. So kind of embracing that. I know sometimes where we could be kind of intimidated with maybe I don't want to get recognized. Allow them to do that, because they do appreciate if you've embraced their process and you're doing it really well and you're seeing outcomes for it.
Wonderful. I think this has been a really interesting conversation, and covered kind of a couple of different things with consistency. But is there anything else, Charlotte, as somebody who has consistency, or either of our coaches, is there anything else that you would like to share about the strength itself, or about anything in general before we kind of move on from these questions?
For me, an understanding that we are fair, we don't play favorites. And with that, I won't play favorites. I don't want to give one person a leg up where it makes it imbalanced or possibly unfair for others. So it's an understanding that I am looking at those patterns. I have an awareness for the outliers. And if I do find that something is not fair in one way or another, I will speak up. And I know in one of the videos it called those with the consistency strength social justice warriors. I'm not really keen on that term, but I will say that it goes back to the egalitarian traits, where we want to make sure that there is an effort when it comes to equality, when it comes to fairness and balance. So if you're working with somebody with consistency on a team, understand that I'm not here to play favorites. I'm here to make sure that everybody understands that there is a process and there's a reason why there are procedures in place. It's about the regulation, the compliance, and the consistency of it all.
Wonderful. Well, Shala, thank you again for being here with us and for sharing so much wisdom. I didn't know much about the consistency strength going into this. And I feel like I've learned so much, not only from your perspective of consistency, but just on the perspective of, this equality and this system, this stability is so valuable. And so thank you for coming on and for sharing with us, and for kind of opening up yourself to these questions. I know it's kind of stressful sometimes to be like, okay, tell me about this in your life, or especially when it's your strengths, and these are things that are very important and individual, and you know best how you use your strengths. So thank you so much for being a part of this and for letting us pick your brain a little bit about consistency, and sharing with our students and sharing with whoever watches this about that strength and about that opportunity that you have to share that. So thank you. Of course, next week we have our includer theme going up. So stay tuned for that, Jaguars. And then also, if you're interested in learning more about your strengths, which I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but we are a Clifton Strengths campus, and we do have the opportunity for our students, faculty and staff to learn about their strengths, to have meetings with our strengths coaches. Kaylin and Clarissa are just two of many on our campus that can work through your strengths with you, have these conversations, just like we did just now, and kind of build up your strengths, build up your understanding and awareness. And you can also find the links to Strengths 101 and Strengths 201 for all of our students who are interested in taking the assessment or learning more about their strengths. You can find it there at tamusa.edu/Jaguar Strength. And of course, from the Mays Center, you can always find us at tamusa.edu/Mays, Mays at tamusa.edu, and Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. We are on all the social medias, and we cannot wait to hear from you about what your strength is, what you, maybe if you have consistency, share with us in the comments how it works for you, how you have been challenged by it, and how it's really helped you excel. So again, you guys, thank you so much for being here. This has been a complete joy and pleasure. I love getting to talk about strengths, and of course, love getting to hear from all of you. Even though we are not together, we are still together. We're not in the same place, we are still together. And it's really a joy to have this campus community. And Shala, Clarissa, and Kaylin for being here. So thankful for that.